The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road is gone, and I must follow if I can. My journey towards Ponyville ended quite suddenly with an ambush and me getting my ass handed to me. I regained consciousness as I was being dragged by my forelegs into a dim-lit saloon, feeling something metal around my neck. Oh, hell. An explosive slave collar. Well, well, well. If it isn't the bitch from New Appaloosa. I heard you took out some of our guys in Dodge. The voice was definitely familiar, but I couldn't quite place a hoof to it. The owner of the voice stepped out from the shadows. Oh, hey, it's Geldy. How's your friend down there? I said sarcastically, receiving a hoof to the jaw for it. Throw her in the cages. I'll deal with her in a bit. The stallion ordered his cronies. I found myself thrown into a cage off in the corner of the room, with a stallion and what looked to be his daughter in it. I looked over to them, a slight feeling of sympathy going through me. After twiddling my hooves in silence for more than just a few minutes, the slaver from the bar finally came up to the cage. He grabbed me by the collar of my jacket, using his hoof and slamming me into the metal bars, and dazing me a bit and ringing my bells. You sure know how to treat a lady a good time. I grunted as I tried to pull myself back from the bars. Bitch, you don't even know your place, do you? He smirked, licking around his lips as he looked over my body. I knew that look as I got it from at least 2 stallions a week, though they usually learn pretty fast what happens afterwards. Although I don't really have the option to kick his flank in a one-on-one fight while stuck in this cage. Well, I guess I could use that to my advantage. Hopefully he won't do much of this thinking with his brain, and see right through this. Maybe that's because no stallions have been able to handle me. I grinned and cocked an eyebrow at him. He seemed to pause as I spoke, stunned. What makes you any different than the losers who normally try? I stood up and turned to myself as best I could, giving him a little slap with the end of my tail. His face flushed red as he gave me a look that he obviously thought made him look attractive. In truth, I found it appalling, so much so I'd rather be shot than do anything with some pony like him. 'Cause I'm the one in charge of the product. I know how to handle a mare better than any pony else here. Then prove it, hotshot. I licked up the foreleg he held by me, giving a little moan as I looked into his eyes. Goddesses, that wasn't a taste I would get out of my mouth easily. The moment he gasped back, I knew I had him. Now, go find me a bed and some ropes so you can just show me just how well you can handle me. I blew him a kiss as he pulled his hoof back out of the cage. He nodded and trot off with his new plan for me in mind. He came back with a decently sized coil of rope, one end of it tied with a lasso. Unlocking the cage door, he proceeded to toss the lasso around my head and yank me out of the cage, kicking the door shut with a slam. I looked back to the stallion and his daughter, giving them a little wink as I was led off towards the stairs. He led me into one of the rooms, shutting the door behind us as I climbed onto the bed. You know what? You took too long. I crouched on top of the bed, licking my lips and rocking my hips as he dropped his end of the rope. But the look on his face, he definitely wasn't thinking with his brain anymore. Let's skip the foreplay. I want to see what you really got for me. I gave a playful growl as he looked like I had just handed him the best weapon in the wasteland. Oh, I am going to rock your world, he shouted as he bounced onto the bed. I caught around his neck with my hoof, using his momentum to swing him down onto the bed. What the hell are you doing, bitch? He swung his hoof back around and smacked me across my muzzle. To be honest, for a moment I was worried the pain might make me break character. But that was about the weakest hit he'd thrown yet. I'd expected more out of him, as he wasn't even making this hard. I grinned wider. I want to know what it's like to ride a real stallion. I leaned down and licked along his neck as he grunted his approval, once again regretting every moment of it. In hindsight, the taste was fine compared to when he put his disgusting hooves on my hips. I had him where I wanted him, and that was the last straw. I dropped down on top of him, using both my forehooves to press into his neck, punching the arteries closed. It was over in only a few seconds, but now came the tricky part. I quickly pulled the rope from around my neck, hooking it around his forelegs. Cutting off circulation to the brain only lasts 10 or so seconds. So it was crunch time as I lifted his hind legs and looped the lasso around them as well. As he stirred back into consciousness, I took the other end of the rope in my mouth and quickly tied it to the bed frame. As I finished, he opened his mouth to call out an alarm. As fast as he had been to smack me, I was much faster when it came to hitting him where it counted. The only thing escaping his muzzle now was air. He flopped to his side in pain, letting out a soft whimper. Unfortunately for him, I couldn't get caught yet, and he was still too damn noisy. I turned around and gave his pride and joy the strongest buck I could, swearing that if I could feel a small pop in my hooves sunk into him. Needless to say, he figured passing out was going to be easier than dealing with the pain. Content with my work, I searched his bags and pockets for the collar and cage keys before walking over to the bed and nudging him on top of me, slowly making my way to the door. I pushed it open quietly, which was no small task, and set him down in the walkway outside, making sure the others hadn't come back outside yet. I went and gingerly scooted a bed up against the doorway, letting me get just enough slack on the rope that I could make sure this would definitely be a ride he would remember. I hopped over the bed and dragged his body to the railing, straining myself as I lifted him up. With one final heave, I pushed him over and watched as he fell. As the rope went taut, I heard a pair of soft pops that were probably his shoulders dislocating, which serves the bastard right for the shit he had pulled. I smiled to myself as he swung there, carefully making my way back down the stairs to the cage, removing my own collar as I did so. I opened the cage with the father and daughter inside. "Hey, wait for me to distract every pony before you two make your escape." I informed them of my plan as I tossed the collar key inside. Just as I turned to leave, I stopped. "Oh, yeah. Don't think I'm doing this for free, though." And with that, I was off making as much noise as possible. Normally, my plans involved me shooting other ponies, not actually getting shot myself. So I can't stress enough just how terrified I had become when all hell broke loose around me. Almost there. Almost to the front gate. Just as I was almost out, an apple-shaped grenade landed next to me and exploded, sending me flying right into a wall. My ears rang and the world spun, and my vision was fading fast. The last thought that ran through my mind before I was swallowed into the void was me hoping that the stallion and his filly made it out okay. I opened my eyes to see myself in pitch blackness. From what I could feel, I was no longer wearing my jacket or shirt, nor my satchel. None of my guns could be found either. I also felt warm. Not wrapped in a blanket by a fireplace warm, but a neutral warm. I blinked as a calm, soothing voice echoed in my head. It sounded female, but like there were multiple ponies talking at once. "Come, child of harmony." Wait, what? I asked out loud. "Go towards light." The voice answered. Just as I was starting to question my sanity, a bright rainbow light phased into reality in front of me. I started out with a light trot, quickly turning to a gallop as I realized that I wasn't getting any closer to the rainbow. I smirked as the light had finally started to get closer, and going up. "Oh, fuck!" I shouted as I realized that I was falling. I screamed myself hoarse before hitting something rather solid. I woke up with a start, gasping for air. My chest felt tight and burned like someone was holding a hot brand against it. Zombie! I heard a small voice scream before receiving a fresh whack on the head, a loud clang echoing through my reverberating skull. Ouch! Fuck! I'm not a damn zombie! I shouted, grabbing my aching head. You sure about that, miss? Y'all were dead. My daughter and I were just briaring you out of respect for saving our lives, the stallion said. I blinked a few times, getting my bearings. I was sitting in a shallow grave that the stallion and little filly from the cage had dug out. I was dead? If that's true, how the hell am I alive now? I asked, clearly not believing I was really a corpse and that the stallion didn't just forget to check for a pulse. No clue, ma'am, he replied. I rolled my eyes. Just remember, the next time you decide to bury a pony, check to see if they are still alive. I did. Y'all had no pulse or anything. The stallion cut me off. I sighed. Sure. Anyway, put that damn shovel down before you hurt some pony. Again. I climbed out of the grave and looked around. It certainly was nighttime. Not exactly a good time to travel in these parts because of the air-free forest. I settled down with the stallion and his daughter for the night after they begged me to stay. I cleaned the dirt and mud that had gotten onto me and in my rifle, thanks to me nearly being buried alive, while ignoring questions from the little filly whose name I had learned was Swivelspark. And her father, Stratos, a weird name for a unicorn, I know, cooked some bloat sprite meat over the fire. So, Miss Storm, was it? What brings y'all this far south? Stratos asked as he gave his daughter some of the meat. Bounty hunter, after someone up in Ponyville. I replied without giving much detail on the subject. Stratos winced. Ho-ho, Ponyville's gonna be hard to get to. What with all the ferals up there? Before I could respond, the light flutter of wings along with the creaking of something metal echoed in the darkness. I instinctively aimed my rifle, aiming towards the sound. Stratos pulled his daughter from behind him and readied his shovel. Like that do any good in a real fight? I thought. A loud thud followed by wheels screeching to a halt came from about 5 feet out the range for the light of our fire to illuminate whoever was out there. The stance slacked as a familiar wall-eyed ghoul trotted happily up to me, a cloth sack hanging from her mouth. Oh, it's just you, Ditzy. What the hell are you doing all the way out here this late? And how in Luna's name did you find me? The ghoulified mare just sat the sack on the ground and smiled at me, her chalkboard already reading, Muffins? I sighed, knowing that might be the only thing I could get out of her until I opened the bag. No, sorry. I haven't had the time to get any muffins for you. Her ears drooped and her smile faded a bit, causing me to feel slightly bad for not having any of the baked goods on hoof for her. I poked the bag, the fabric slipping to reveal the object she had brought. A fairly old model pip-buck. There was a small note attached to it that looked to have been written by Harmony. I picked up the rare piece of wasteland tech and read the note. Storm, I've sent you this not only as a way to show my appreciation for how you helped out the town, but also as a way to help you in all the fights you seem to be getting yourself into. Seriously, you need not get shot so much. That or lose some weight. You are hard to drag all the way into town. Consider the pip-buck a gift from a friend to a friend. But in all seriousness, that thing was expensive, so I do expect at least a quarter of its value paid back to me. Your friend, Harmonic Drive. P.S. If you could cover Dizzy-Doo's shipping costs as well, I'd be mighty thankful. I groaned and dropped the note on the ground, stomping it under hoof. Not only is Harmony costing me caps by sending me an extravagant gift that I still have to pay for, she has absolutely no faith in my combat skills. I mean, yeah, lately hasn't been going perfectly, but I don't see her out here collecting bounties. I opened the old Arcanotech device, looking at its padded interior. I had never gotten to see one of them up close before. A few working ones I've seen were all already attached to some pony. I stuck my left forehoof down, using my right to lift it against my leg. It didn't look like it had any sort of connector that fit into the other side, but when I pushed it shut, it clicked together. Immediately my vision filled with lines of bright green, scrolling code, several weird icons and indicators fuzzing into place. I shut my eyes tightly for a few times, as they adjusted the oddness of the projected images. There was a compass and a bar indicating my general health at the bottom of my left vision, as well as an indicator at the bottom right telling me that I was wearing my weapon, and miraculously how many rounds were still left in it. A new image popped up into the center of my vision, looking like a long wavy line in a rectangle. The top of the image read, "Your Pip-Buck and you. A quick starter guide." There was a click before the sound of a country mare filled my ears. "Greeting and salutations, new Pip-Buck user. My name's Applebloom, current co-CEO of Stable-Tech Industries. Please take a moment to listen to this here short instructional guide on how to use your Stable-Tech Pip-Buck. As you may have already noticed, your Pip-Buck comes fully equipped with a wide array of features to help you in your everyday life. Features such as a built-in compass and auto-mapping function. Never get lost again when your Pip-Buck autonomously and discreetly remembers everything and everywhere you've ever been. Another fantastic feature is the all-in-one identification and organization spell. Anything that you can place in your saddlebags or assorted clothing is automatically added to your inventory screen and detailed with things such as quality, weight, and quantity. Tired of scrounging through your bags to find the one thing you need? The Pip-Buck sorting spell is also designed to fetch whatever you're hankering for and bring it to the top of your bags. Next is the all-important medical screen. It'll give you the detailed readings of all your vital stats and even tell you if one of your bones is busted. Think about how much time you'll save if you don't have to guess whether you need to trot the injury off or get yourself to that emergency room. Another amazing feature of your Pip-Buck is the planner and organizer functions. You can easily keep track of all the details and tasks you need to do, and you can even record and listen to reminders you or others set. Now you can make sure that you don't forget your special Sun Pony's anniversary, or to pay the bills. Lastly, we here at Stable-Tech have your personal safety in mind, and have included a spell set for use as a last resort. With just a simple thought of using it, our patented Stable-Tech Arcane Targeting Spell, or SATS for short, can assist you in aiming any sort of weapon you got on hoof. We personally guarantee that if you need to use it more than once per fight, you ain't using a genuine Stable-Tech system. Disclaimer: Stable-Tech is not liable or responsible for any injuries you may sustain during any fights while using the patented Stable-Tech Arcane Targeting Spell. SATS is not recommended for use by pregnant mares or any foal under the age of 10. Please use time alteration spells responsibly. That concludes our basic tutorial. We here at Stable-Tech sincerely hope you all enjoy the many features provided on your new Pip-Buck. If you should have any problems, please head down to your nearest Stable-Tech retailer, and we'll take care of whatever you need. Y'all take care now! The audio stopped as the image of my vision disappeared, leaving me in a profound silence, with the others looking at me curiously. The cracking fire made the lack of conversation all the more uncomfortable, as they looked to me to break the silence. "Well, that was interesting," I remarked, looking down at the old war device. "Who knows how they thought all this shit up back before everything blew up?" Ditzy raised her hoof and smiled. "All right. Of course she would." I once again found myself in the black void of the rainbow light just ahead of me. "Come, child. Your destiny awaits." "What the fuck are you?" I shouted back at the light. No response. Irritated, I began galloping towards it once again, having the same amount of luck as last time. This time, however, instead of falling, a silhouette of a pony's figure stood in front of me, the shape seeming a bit brighter and lighter in tone than the surrounding blackness. I didn't know what prompted me to do this, but I swung a hoof at it, only to have my attack blocked and for me to get knocked to my ass. The black figure then raised its hooves and began beating the ever-living shit out of me. I screamed out in pain as bones cracked and flesh was pierced. Just before I could scream at it to ask what the hell was going on, it all disappeared and I was once again standing a few yards away from the light, fully intact. I looked myself over, noticing all my injuries had healed themselves. Then I heard the calm voice in my head once more. Not ready. And just like that, I was falling again. I woke up, out of breath and somewhat sore. The morning pressed on slowly as we all prepared ourselves for our journeys. Stratos taking the time to cook the rest of the bloat sprite meat he had left over. Ditzy had offered to give Stratos and Swivel a ride to Ten Pony Tower, over in Manhattan where they lived. I had been surprised to find out that the two ex-slaves lived in that den of prissy assholes. But then again, who am I to judge where they wanted to stay? I shook my leg a bit, remarking on how odd the weight of the pip-buck felt. It wasn't that it was cumbersome, it just felt so out of place. I checked my gear, paid Ditzy the fee Harmony incurred, and said my goodbyes. As the skycart took off, I realized that I have no idea where I was. Not once between last night and now had I asked where the hell we were, and none of the terrain even looked nearly familiar to me. I sighed, hanging my head down and attempting to face-hoof myself for being so fucking stupid. Instead, I smacked myself with the pip-buck. Wait, the tutorial said this thing had a map spell on it, didn't it? I clicked across the menus, finally coming across the cartography menu. It was not far off from the original route, and I actually was closer than I thought. I could probably still make it there on schedule if I skirted the Everfree Forest for most of the way. I stretched my legs and started off, heading towards the map marker for Ponyville. The lines of red moved about my pip-buck's compass. I was reminded that the edge of the Everfree Forest always creeped me out. It was as if some pony had decided that there had to be a straight boundary of where the wasteland ended and where the forest began. Most of the sickly-looking trees still had foliage on them, helping to conceal the odd horrors that lived within. I made sure to keep myself spaced a good 30 yards from it, wanting to have time to react if any beast inside decided that they wanted to see how Pony tasted. It didn't take long, following the forest edge, to reach the limits of Ponyville, the clock tower on the outskirts of town being the first thing I saw across the horizon. It was where I was headed, thinking that I could set up an observation point in the stipple. The closer I got, the better off it looked than like the building was still unoccupied by any pony. Then again, with all the houses around here, who would live in a clock tower? I quickly made my way inside, staying low and being as quiet as I could in case any pony was actually in town. I climbed the rickety old stairs, making me cringe with each step, the old wood bowing and creaking more than I felt they should. Finally, though, I made it to the top, ducking under the enormous hanging bell and peeking over the railing of the town below. My eyes immediately caught movement near a giant dead tree across town, prompting me to pull out my rifle. What do we have going on here? I whispered as I peered out through the optic, watching as a large pack of feral ghouls shambled about the streets. Well, shit. I've lost interest in counting past 30, but that's just there. If the target really was here, I'd need to think up some way to get through the hordes of undead ponies. A streak of non-shambling movement pulled my attention towards the library. Hello there, I whispered to myself again, this time with a grin. The figure was a crimson-coated unicorn, his black and red striped mane flagging him as my target. My smile dropped off as I noticed the feral ghouls were just letting him walk past. Just how is it you're doing that? I frowned and watched as he disappeared into the homely-looking tree. I turned my sight to the large sign on the door. The Golden Oak Library. I sighed and pulled my gun back, leaning back down against the old stairway. Maybe there's a book in there that tells me how to sneak past 36 zombies. Footnote: you reached level 14. Skill note: sneak raised from 60 to 74. New perk: unknown forces. There seems to be an unknown force watching over you, like guardian angels. You now have a 10% chance to ignore a fatal blow in combat.